200 million views on a game dev channel. That's almost unheard of in the game dev niche, where the top creators barely scratch a million views. So how did he do it? Well, today I'm going to break down the exact methods that Danny and many other top creators use to get hundreds of millions of views. And I'm not just talking about the basics of removing silences or making your thumbnails slightly brighter. I'm going deep into the psychological war over attention. Now, before we get this started, I just want to ask this one question. Should you even do YouTube game development in the first place? Well, on one side, you have the pros. It's a passive income. It can be very motivating, and you get early game testing with your audience. On the opposite side, you have time. You have an infinite amount of time in the world, but deciding where to spend it is very crucial. Thankfully, I've spent literally the past 3 years succeeding, failing, and learning, so just by watching this video, you'll save yourself years worth of pain and suffering. Now, why don't we get started with one of the most important decisions of the video, the idea. When you're first coming up with an idea, you're going to need a lot of bad ideas, because a lot of bad ideas can create one good idea, and a lot of good ideas can create a lot of great ideas. But where do you find a lot of bad ideas, or ideas in general? Well, you can find them from literally anywhere. A lot of my recommendations is in your everyday life, brainstorming like, what do you want to do? I like to use ChatGPT from time to time, although I wouldn't recommend using all the ideas, just picking out a few of them. And lastly, going on YouTube and looking not just in the game dev niche, but niches outside of game dev. See if there's something that's going viral there that could potentially be more fitted towards game dev. And make sure this idea is something doable within a reasonable time frame. You don't want to overscope the video and spend months and months on this. You want to be able to try and do it within a month at least. Or you could do longer or whatever you feel like, but ideally it's closer to between a week and a month. The idea has a couple requirements though. Not only should it be doable within a reasonable time frame, but also it should be something that you enjoy and want to work on yourself. It should be somewhat tailored to your audience, so something that they find kind of interesting. It doesn't have to be all of them, but at least a good chunk of them. And it should provide some kind of value to the viewer, whether that be entertainment, like it's funny or whatever, it's inspirational, or you're working on a big game that they see and it's really cool, or lastly, it's educational, where you're teaching them something of value. And lastly, it should be unique from the crowd. The way I do this is you can literally just look up your video idea on YouTube and basically make sure that your video is going to be the best, because there are only two requirements for a viral video. You could either be the first or you could be the best. So as long as you look up your idea and verify this, that's when you know you have a viral video idea. You've got an idea for a game, but you still haven't guaranteed that people will watch your video. That's why we'll make a thumbnail so good that people will have to click. Now, the first step when making a thumbnail is, again, finding inspiration from elsewhere on YouTube. But there's another thing called formats, and these are used all across YouTube, where YouTubers will keep using them to get hundreds of millions of views, and there's like thousands of them. I found this really good video explaining and showing off all the different formats, so I'll leave a link to his video in the description so that you can find inspiration. Not only that, but you can also go outside your niche and find inspiration, like I did for this video, and that inspiration turned into this thumbnail. Now, some other tips about making thumbnails is make sure you use complementary colors. There's this thing called a color wheel, and when you use colors from the opposite side, it makes them stand out, it makes them complement each other. And then there's the rule of thirds. It's basically these 4 lines that allow you to make the thumbnail stand out more by making sure they're symmetrical but still different from the crowd. Then once you've actually made your thumbnail, you need to visualize it before putting it on YouTube, which means you need to check for if the timestamp is covering up and whether it even looks good, especially on large or small devices, and if it's in light or dark mode on YouTube. These can make a huge difference that most people don't think about when making a thumbnail. Lastly, you should understand the psychology that goes through viewers' mind when they're finding a video, because this blew my mind once I knew this. You see, viewers, they're scrolling on YouTube and they're looking for something to watch. And you can even do this yourself. You can kind of go through the same exact psychology that you will realize once you do it. You know, you're scrolling through YouTube and all of a sudden you get caught by a thumbnail. Like, this thumbnail stands out. You look at the title. You verify that that title matches with the thumbnail and it makes you want to click even more. And then finally, you check back to the thumbnail and you click it to finally verify it again. So you have to focus on the thumbnail and the title, because if you don't, they won't click. And lastly, honestly, there should be nothing to delete without losing the meaning behind the video. Basically, if your thumbnail is very crowded and there's a whole lot of things within the thumbnail, you can remove a lot of that stuff. There's also this thing called the 3-element rule, which isn't really like restrictive, like you don't have to follow this rule exactly, but it's just a good rule of thumb. Only 3 elements that stand out in the thumbnail. With all this information, any thumbnail you make has a very good chance to go viral, but there's still another part of the video packaging, and if done right, could easily 10x the views. You see, the thumbnail is nothing without its title. They're like bread and butter, cookies and milk, or fuel and fire. Again, same thing with the thumbnail, idea, and title. You need to find inspiration from elsewhere, either YouTube or literally anywhere else. And there's also formats for titles as well. You don't think about this, but if you go on YouTube, and you can easily take videos that you see and break them down into a format that you can reuse. For example, this guy made an editing video. Make editing so good that viewers have to click. I can reuse that to, I made a game so good you have to play. Then there's also trigger words, which I highly recommend using. Just go on Google, literally look up trigger words, and it'll show you hundreds of words that are built to make you want to click, like the twisted psychology behind AAA games, something simple like that. Also, do be sure to make sure the title is very short and straight to the point. You don't want something that goes on longer than at least 55 characters. It's a good rule of thumb. And lastly, another good spot to get inspiration for titles is to kind of go and look at your target audience, their desires or needs. So let's just say I'm in the cooking business or whatever. I'm making a cake, okay? If that's the video. It's not a very good idea, but you'll get the point in a second. And most likely my viewers, they want to learn how to make a cake, but not only that, they want to make the best cake, and they probably want to do it fast. You know, they want to not spend a lot of time on things like this, you know, it could be very messy. So you can make a video like how to make the perfect cake in under 10 minutes. A bad example would be like how I made a game in 2 weeks with Unity. That's not really unique. It's kind of very blah, and it doesn't really stand out from the crowd, especially on YouTube. I've seen hundreds of these videos where it's like, I made my first game or whatever. Well, you can't really do that anymore because so many people have already done that, made their first game, first 3D game, whatever. So you either have to be the first or the best. And so if you're the best, you could make something, for example, like this game dev trick got me 10,000 downloads. Way more people are going to watch that because it sounds like you know what you're doing, and I want to know what that trick is. So now viewers are almost guaranteed to click. But how do we actually get them to watch? It involves a little something called a hook to get the viewers so lured in that they need to watch the whole video to get the answer. In that case, I'm going to use the intro of this video, and I'm going to see if you can spot the 2 very important things that I did. 200 million views on a game dev channel. That's almost unheard of in the game dev niche, where the top creators barely scratch 1 million views. So how did he do it? Well, today I'm going to break down the exact methods that Danny and many other top creators use to get hundreds of millions of views. And I'm not just talking about the basics of removing silences or making your thumbnails slightly brighter. I'm going deep into the psychological war over attention. Did you spot it? Well, I'll tell you the first thing I did. The very first thing I did was I verified the thumbnail. So you saw the thumbnail was like Danny sitting on some money with a lot of big number, or something similar to that, with Danny having success. And he is a very popular creator, but I also didn't outright say his name. I said 200 million views on a game dev channel. That's factually true, but I also didn't mention his name. Some people don't know who Danny is. You know, he's a big YouTuber, but not everyone knows who he is. So again, I verified the thumbnail by literally stating the 200 million views on a game dev channel and how crazy that is by saying it's unheard of. But then I asked the question, so how did he do it? And basically what that is doing is it's teasing the climax or the video, because literally in this video I'm breaking down how he did it, and then I kind of take that question and I also like expand on it and make it sound even more impressive. Like I'm gonna break down the exact methods that top creators use to get millions of views. And then I also talked about, like, I'm not talking about basic stuff because I've seen a lot of videos like this and they do that. They talk about removing silences or making the thumbnail brighter, and I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to tell people that this is a video worth watching and it's not like those other videos. But then after I do that, getting right into the question, should you even do YouTube game dev in the first place, you know? And like, sure, people might click off because I'm telling them like whether they should do it, and if they don't think they should do it, they won't do it. But I think it's important to ask that right away, because like if I ask that at the end, I don't know, it'd be kind of counterintuitive to all the stuff you just learned. So that's why I like to do that at the end. Now that you have a video idea, you can start the journey of this project or game or whatever you're so passionate about. But it's important that you don't mess this step up, because 90% of people don't execute on their idea. This step of the process is about making the video have your unique experience and perspective on something that you've built to tell the story that everyone should know about. But before you get started, I have a few key bits of advice to make sure you not only complete your ideas, but you execute on it today. Now, before you even open Unity or whatever program you're using to build the project you're working on, define the game, define whatever project you're working on. What makes it unique and what makes it stand out. Not only that, but be realistic with your time. Usually you're gonna have to take whatever time you think it's gonna get done and double it. And that's how you know how long it's gonna take. Because you still want to provide a good product, or at least provide something that looks good on camera. And most importantly, I'm gonna talk about this as if you're making a game, but define your minimum viable product first. That is the very first thing you should do. But what actually is like a minimum viable product? Let's just take this for an example. So let's just say we're making Fortnite, okay? I want to make Fortnite, but that's a huge ambition. Also, like I said, be realistic. Fortnite's not a good example. Let's just say we're making a basic like FPS, and the very first thing should literally just be a moving character and like a weapon. These shouldn't even be models. These should just be literally a bean, a box, and then like a bullet in the form of like a sphere, and it just shoots out. That's the entire game loop. That's your minimum viable product. And once you got your minimum viable product, you want to have something to show off. So do one feature and then add the looks, because if you don't do looks and you just have a bunch of boxes laying around a map, that's demotivating. And if you only do looks, then the game's not fun. So you just have to find this balance between going back and forth between feature and looks. And lastly, you want to polish the game up, and this can do a lot of simple things that could enhance the experience way more, and just by adding music, adding sound effects, and adding particle effects. These are a great way to enhance the overall fun of the game. So you understand the hook and the story to tell, but that's only the beginning of your script. Sure, you could write the classic 5-paragraph essay for school, but let's be honest, is there anyone who actually thought, yeah, this is actually kind of interesting? Yeah, no one ever. Boring. Scripts are so much more than that. They're psychologically built to hook your attention into watching every second, and it all starts with a loop. But what actually is a loop? A loop is kind of just this switch between context, conflict, and a rehook. See, loops create this open question in the viewer's mind. So once you create this question, it gets closed when it satisfies the viewer, or you just answer the question literally. What actually is a loop? Well, I kind of just did that. It's a question and then it's an answer. That is literally context and conflict. But then after that, you need to rehook the viewer, because once they've got their answer to the question, they immediately want to leave. So you want to rehook them by asking a new question. There are many more methods than just this though in creating actual loops. First of all, again, you've got the context, where you're just kind of talking about the subject. You get the conflict. It's like, oh, something comes up in the code or whatever. I get this bug. Now I can't do that. And then rehook, you're like, okay, I solved that, but then I also want to add this other feature, and that's another loop. Then there's also, you know, get more context again. There's always context within a video. You're always talking, you know, it's kind of the point of a video. Then you get an application, which an application is basically just an example of something. You want to like be like, oh, I'm going to add this feature to the game, but I want it to be like this feature in Minecraft, where if you break blocks, or it's something simple like that. And then framing is you're gonna apply that back into the overall story. So you're gonna be like, yeah, that was that feature, and then I added it here or whatever. And finally, you always need to make sure you rehook, because if you don't, then it gives them a very good reason to leave. So you need to ask a new question or provide a new question within the script, like, oh, I want to add this feature. Then there's two other ones, which is an ad and a joke. But there's a really good way you can implement these with loops. So for an ad, you might say, for example, the very best way to learn more as a YouTube game developer is to get to know more people that want to be interested in this topic, because then you can learn together. And there's only one good place for that, and that's my Discord server. Join now in the link in the description. And lastly, there's jokes, which are just kind of something you can sprinkle in on top to make the video just sound a little bit better, a little bit more entertaining. It's just kind of a nice way to make it feel authentic and real as a video. But you don't want to overdo it either. You also want to make sure the jokes are relatable for everyone, and something that is not another Danny joke. Like, so many people in the game dev space think that they have to take Danny jokes, but you can make jokes out of literally anything, you know? So don't just copy Danny, make your own jokes. If anything, start making a list of jokes and then just pick the best one. It's again back to that bad ideas create good ideas, and good ideas create great ideas. So you can do that the same thing for jokes. Bad jokes create good jokes, and good jokes create great jokes. But loops aren't the only thing in your script, so here are just a few more tips to make your retention 10 times higher and write 10 times easier. The first thing, kind of like I mentioned earlier, is when you're making the video, you need to create this big loop in the video. So what is the big loop should start with the thumbnail. What is the question of the thumbnail or title? And then what gets answered at the end? What is in the climax? The loop at the beginning is going to be like, I'm going to make my own boss, but how do I even do that? You know, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then here's the journey of me learning how to do it. And then at the end, you finally get to show off the boss and show off this cool feature or whatever game you made. But then take that loop and break it into smaller loops. So break it into like the troubles, the trials that you went through just to get there. And just breaking it down helps so much, because not only is it making these smaller loops to make it easier in the viewer's mind to kind of create question and then answer it in kind of the satisfying smaller loops, but also by breaking it down, you're making it easier for you to script. Because when you break it down into like an outline, it makes it so much easier to write than if you were to just start writing. It's very hard to just start writing. So what I like to do is I like to list out literally all the points, all the features, whatever that I did in the video or in my recordings, and just list them all out. And same thing for jokes. I'll also make a list for those. And then also a good tip is to use transition words. So you should never use and then. Don't use that at all, but rather use words like or therefore. So I'll give an example, like I went outside, and then I went to the store, and then I got some milk, and then I came home. That's so boring. I'm hungry, or like I'm thirsty right now, but we're all out of milk. Therefore, I went to the store to get some. You see how that sounds so much more interesting than and then, and then, and then. And it's kind of back to this repetitiveness, basically. And it kind of leads me to my next point, where sentences should also be varying lengths, so you don't get that repetitiveness. So what I'll like to do is when I'm writing my script, I like to write each sentence on a separate line. That way I can make sure it kind of gets this bounce back and forth pattern. That way I don't repeat the length of sentences, because you're repeating the video basically. And if you have repetitive kind of nature in the video, it gets boring very quickly. And lastly, make sure you do a cut. Make sure you do cut 10% of your script, because if you're doing that, then you know you're only keeping the very best for the video. And also just do a basic grammar check. I always like to throw my script into Grammarly or whatever, just to get that last final check and make sure it's really good. Sure, we've covered all the pre-production behind the video, which gets people to pay attention. But if your editing is just straight trash or unwatchable, you will fail before you've even begun. That's why I'm going to show you some tricks to make your editing so good it's almost mesmerizing. Now, the first thing you should get out of the way is the level of your audience. You see, if you're a younger audience, typically you're going to have to edit faster and edit very hard to like make sure they're paying attention, versus if they're a lot older audience, they don't really care as much. You can pretty much slow down the cuts, you can slow down the amount of transitions or whatever. You can make it very simple and easy for people to watch. Also, this is a tip that I learned very recently, which is there's two different types of editing. There's editing vertically or horizontally, and this made it so much easier for me to edit. Before, I was editing vertically, so I would cut the entire voiceover, then I would do the entire like footage. I would have to grab footage from all over the place, and it was just a huge mess and a pain in the butt. It would take me weeks to do it because I was very demotivated, like trying to find footage that will cover like a second of your video, and you have like an 8-minute video. Yeah, that's a lot of seconds, and it's going to take me ages to do. But there's the other method where you edit horizontally, which means you just do like something like 30 seconds at a time, and you do the voiceover, the music, the footage, the visual effect, all of that in one layer. And so it kind of builds this horizontally, and it just makes it so much more motivating, because then you're getting the finalized product and you're like, oh, this video actually looks kind of cool, it's coming out really cool. Even though you're only 30 seconds in, then it's just like, oh, then you do the next 30 seconds, the next 30 seconds, and eventually it builds into the entire video. Now, some other tips I have is to use silence to enhance other parts. If you want to enhance something, you want people to focus on this, you need to cut certain parts. Like if you want them to focus on your voice, you're going to cut the audio. Or if you want them to focus on just the visual, you might cut the audio. Or if you want them to just focus on like the sound effects, then you'll cut literally everything else. And you'll use this to your advantage. Cut parts to enhance other parts. Next, you need to use sound effects or other editing techniques to explain why something happened. For example, this text explained with a whoosh. So I used a whoosh sound effect to bring that into the video. Or explain with like zoom in. Like when you zoom in, explain why that happened with some kind of other sound effect. That's what these sound effects are here for. They're here to enhance the experience. But also, you can use music to do this kind of thing too, by cutting to the beat of the music. So the beat of the music kind of explains the different cuts. And you don't have to do this all the time, but It's just kind of a very nice rhythm to kind of keep with the video, and it's kind of a cool thing that I like to do as well. And the last thing is always improve something every time. Learn something new. Learn how to do a 3D camera, learn how to improve your captions, whatever. I am still very much learning on the editing front. I'm not very good at it, but I think some of these tips that I've just provided to you will help enhance your editing. Everything I've talked about so far is specific to success on game dev YouTube, but these next tips will not only help your success with YouTube, but with your everyday life. See, game dev YouTube is extremely difficult. In fact, it's probably one of the hardest niches on YouTube, which means it's not only extremely time, be hard to stay motivated. That's why I put together a system of product which could potentially give you some sort of new strategy that could potentially implement in your own daily life. Now, this is just kind of a breakdown of what I do day to day, my productivity step. Literally, before the day has even begun, the day beforehand, I will write down a list of goals, like 3 big goals that I want to get done the next day. These are like my priority goals, like I have to get these done. Not completely failing, but these are just the priority goals. And then I'll break those goals down into different tasks. So like, let's say I want to add a feature to my game. I want to add physics to my game. I'm going to break that down into like writing the actual code outline, breaking it down into like, oh, I want to do the X, then the Y, then the Z physics plane or whatever. Break these tasks down into smaller to-dos and make sure that they're so small that it's hard to not do them, because they're so simple and it take you literally 5 seconds. And so I'll make my to-do list for the next day. I'll make that priority to-do list. I'll make my other to-do list. And then also kind of plan out around my schedule. Like if I have an appointment or whatever, I'll kind of plan around that. Be like, okay, I'm going to work on this goal at this time. I'll work on this other goal at this time. And then I'll make sure I get good sleep. Because remember, I always do this the day before. I make my to-do list the night before. And if you can get into that cycle of making your goals the night beforehand, you will do so much better every single day, because you'll always make sure you're getting those things done. And obviously, get good sleep, get 7 to 10 hours. On the next day, I'll get up and I'll make sure I have an alarm set to get up at a certain time. And I'll put my alarm like far away from my bed, so I actually have to get up and turn it off. That's just another simple thing I do. Actually working on something, I'll put my phone in a different room so that it's completely removed. I can just focus on what I'm actually trying to get done. And it's important to keep in mind that everything you do is built on habits. So every small thing you do every single day, you're more likely to do it the next day. And the more you do it, the harder it is to kind of like stop doing that thing. But if you stop doing it like once, that is like one step closer to stopping that habit. Because as humans, we're kind of trained to do kind of the same things every day. So you're more likely to do it the next day. But if you stop doing it for some time and you do something else instead, or you do something new, you're more likely to repeat that task. So you make your days like what you want the rest of your life to be like. Like, hey, I want to get this done at this time. I want to make sure I work out, I take a shower. I'll make sure I put these on my list. And then the more you do them, the more it'll keep going. But not only that, you can also create triggers on your mind. Is like, oh, I'm sitting at my computer desk, I'm more likely to work on code then. So if I go and sit down, I'll do that. Or, oh, hey, I have my phone in my hand, I'm going to start scrolling, remove triggers that create bad. Also, just do the basic stuff of, take breaks, go outside, shower, work out, read, all that stuff. It's good for you. It's healthy for you. Just do it once a day. It doesn't take that long, and it'll have a great impact on your life.
But like, you mess up, you learn from your mistake, you mess up, you learn from your mistake. You in 2 years, might have learned from 20 mistakes. Or if you have like 4 other people who are also messing up, and when they learn from the mistake, they teach you what they learn. Stuff like that. Hypothetically, you 2 years down the road have learned like 5 times more of the amount of stuff. So it just like helps you grow exponentially way quicker.
That is one of the biggest creators on YouTube, but also his advice is completely right. Which means if you want to be a successful game dev YouTuber, you need other game dev and YouTuber friends. I'm going to tell you exactly how to find people like yourself. So literally just go on to social media, obviously you probably don't want to advertise yourself on every platform, but the ones that I've found best is just reach out to people who are going through the same thing. For example, I had another YouTuber reach out to me and invited me to this Discord server with a bunch of other game dev YouTubers. I would have never done that before, or even before I had done interviews with other popular game dev YouTubers. I just sent them an email. It's really short and straight to the point. That way I don't waste their time. I just asked them some questions. Everyone literally has this feature on their channel. You can go into their about section, click on email, and then you can just email them. So if you was another small creator, just email them. Or if you're a game dev YouTuber, you could literally just join my Discord. It's literally aimed towards helping other game dev YouTubers, and I want to help you. So if you join there, I'll be there. I'll be messaging people, you know. I think I'm pretty active on the server, especially since there's only like 10 people on it right now. But by doing this, you're learning together at 10 times the rate, because you're all combining your knowledge, you're all learning from each other. One person makes a mistake, everyone else learns. At the end of the day, we need money so we can afford to live, while still being able to chase our dreams. In most people's cases, they either have school, have a part-time job, or they're already in some sort of computer science, but all with the same passion to build something of their own. I'm gonna give you the same step-by-step formula that top creators use to print money, so you can build your passion, and all it has to do with is the Illuminati. Hear me out, it's not really the Illuminati, it's a triangle. A triangle is a funnel. At the top, you've got your new viewers, like they just kind of find you. Maybe they find you through either shorts or a different social media platform. And where do you want to funnel them? Well, you probably want to funnel them to YouTube. And so maybe they'll watch 1 or 2 videos. That's kind of your top layer. Then you have your casual viewers, which these are the viewers that'll come onto your channel and they'll watch all your videos and they'll subscribe and they'll comment or whatever. They'll interact with your community way more than the new. And then you funnel down into your core viewers. This is the most important viewers. These are the most loyal fans. These are the people that will watch all your videos, possibly even pay you money for different products you offer. Now, these different products, especially on game dev YouTube, there's a lot of different ways to do. There's obviously the AdSense and sponsorships, which we've already kind of covered, where people will literally just watch your videos, and that's how those work. So I will say something on sponsorship. I would just wait for sponsors to reach out to you, and then make sure it's not a scam, you know, verify their email, because I haven't actually gotten a sponsorship yet, but that's as far as I know about it. A lot of sponsors will probably end up emailing you, because it's kind of hard to reach out to sponsorships. I mean, you can if you like go on their website and you reach out through different emails, but it's a lot harder to do that versus if you were to just reach out to other creators with sponsorship email. But then there's other monetization like Patreon, or maybe you're selling product or whatever. Those are going to be in your core audience. So that's how they're going to react to that. Once you've kind of built this audience of core viewers, casual viewers, and new viewers, you're going to want to funnel them all down into this monetization strategy. Last, I just want to end on a high note for my hopes for the future of not only YouTube, but also indie games and the niche as a whole. You see, through indie game dev, it both started over a decade ago, and I believe we're in the golden age and things have only just begun. For example, if you know Blender and you know how to use any game engine, you can literally do anything with it. You could literally make anything, show anything off, and you have a platform to promote it to millions that YouTube just willingly gives for free, which is a huge advantage. Think of it, you could also do like crazy like Mr. Beast level challenges, games, like custom games, or like those crazy Minecraft civilizations built in a custom game. Like, you can do that. Anyone can build these ideas within their given game engine, and that they know how to use the tool. And like most of you, you probably already know how to use tools. They can take some time to learn, but eventually you can get good at it and you can create this crazy stuff that I haven't seen anyone do yet. There are an infinite amount of options out there, and all you have to do is put in the work. You're not just a game dev. You're a one-person army forming entire worlds from scratch. Every pixel placed, every line of code written, every bug squashed is a step closer towards great. If it were easy, everyone would do it, but they don't. While AAA studios burn millions, you're building bold, original experiences with nothing but passion and raw determination. This is the golden era of indie, and your game has the power to break the internet. Hit record, share your journey, and show the world what a solo dev is truly capable. Yo, you ain't just a dev, you're a world creator. A one-person army, no team, no beta. Pixels and code, yeah, you grind through the night, no sleep, no dreams, trying to get it just right. While AAA's burn stacks just to play it safe, you build from passion, raw, no fake. It was easy, they all take the ride, but you're deep in the trenches, solo with pride. Bugs your way, nah, you crush those quick. Ideas so fresh, they hit like a brick. This, the indie age, and you're bringing the flame. One dev, one team, about to change the game. So hit record, let the world see the grind. Your game's got the heart to break the online. No more waiting, no more delay. Legends aren't born, they start today.